Well, it's that time of year again. Backed by popular demand, it's HutVent 2025. And as with last year, we're following the First World War 110 years later. So this year, we're going to be looking at items which were either made, worn, used, or relate to the year of 1915. And to begin with, I thought what I would do is look at that most quintessential of pieces of 1915 British Army headgear, the winter service dress cap, or Gore Blimey, as it became known. When the British Army go off to war in August 1914, the majority of them are wearing the stiff 1905 service dress cap. It has a flat top with wire in to hold its shape, which proves very popular with German snipers. So quickly, the fellas take the wire out, they break the shape up so it blends in. But with the onset of winter, the War Office introduced a new type of headgear. This was pattern sealed in mid-November 1914 and becomes known as the winter service dress cap. In practice, there is no evidence whatsoever that these reached France until 1915, hence we're telling the story now, and virtually every photograph shows them being worn in the early part of 1915. The cap was soft and squashy. The lining was made out of grey flannel shirt material, sewn in concentric circles to give it some rigidity. And it featured this strap across the top, which if it's slackened off, and then you unfold the extra fabric at the back, could be turned into a balaclava. Here we are. And Ramsey Green, who's been incredibly helpful and given us some wonderful research on these caps, says that he's not managed to find any actual reference to them until the February of 1915. And the nickname, Gore Blimey, some people say that that's because the very first Sergeant Major saw it, said, "Gore Blimey, what on earth are you wearing?" But Ramsey's come up with this wonderful cartoon from the Bystander magazine from the 10th of March 1915, showing our proud soldier in his new piece of headgear, and as the caption says, Gore Blimey. So I suspect that that's probably where the nickname came from, and it spread. In the July of 1915, they decided to add a chin strap. The very early caps had no chin strap at all. The later ones from the July had these hooks on the side to fasten a separate chin strap, which was literally just a strip of leather with 3 slots in either end so that you could adjust it to get it to fit. Again, very rarely ever see any pictures of them with the chin straps on, let alone them being worn. They are not popular. As I say, it's very, very difficult to find photographs of anybody actually wearing them with the balaclava part down. It would be very difficult to hear what was going on if you were on sentry duty. I've got a couple of photographs of fellas of the 4th Suffolks at Reichsburg in 1915 with the flaps down, but that's about it. It's very, very hard to find any evidence that anyone wore them like it. In 1916, Ramsey's of the opinion that these were cut off probably in the April because the army had a formal summertime and a winter time. So from the 1st of October until the end of March, it was formally winter. So that meant that you had woolen underpants, you had woolen vests, and the winter trench cap was on issue. And then from the 1st of April until the end of September, it was a summertime. So you handed your woolly pants in and your woolly vest in, and you were given cotton ones. So in theory, the winter trench cap, which was part of the winter scale of clothing, would have been handed in, and you'd have got a standard service dress cap. But I suspect he's right, and that these were popular, these were soft, they were comfortable, they were nice and easy to screw up and tuck in your pocket or put in your pack. So I suspect that soldiers cut the flaps off just to turn it into an ordinary type of cap so that you could then use this instead of the very sort of stiff and starchy ones. They were re-pattern sealed again in 1918, probably ready for the expedition to Russia, which was then getting underway. And again, very rare to see any evidence that they're actually used on the Russian expedition. So I suspect it was one of those sort of preparing for it, but they never used it. And eventually they were made obsolete in the March of 1921. They kind of hang around until the middle of 1916. Occasionally they'll crop up. The famous film of the Battle of the Somme, there's a few Royal Artillery fellows you can see still wearing them, but they really are almost non-existent by then. They're quite a rare beast. This particular example belonged to Private Careless of the 1st 20th Battalion, the London Regiment, and it's a lovely survivor. It's still got bits of candle wax dripped on the top where he dripped it on in his trench or in his dugout, and a few bits of sort of damage on it. Private Careless eventually goes off to India with the 2nd Battalion of the Somerset Light Infantry, so he ends up having a far more comfortable war in a nice hot place, and presumably managed to hang on to that as a souvenir. The Gore Blimies are very, very hard to find now. They're an incredibly rare survivor, and we're very, very lucky in the Great War Huts collection to have 2 of them, especially this one, which is a very, very nice example, still in its original form, although Private Careless's lovely earlier example in its straight off the battlefield form, for me, is the nicer of the 2. But as I say, we're very lucky to have them, and lucky to be able to share them with you on our first HutVent of 2025.